we are live. So I'd like to bring the 2021 Planning Commission reorganization meeting to order. I'll call the roll. Mr. Capuzzi?
Here.
Mr. Channon?
Here.
Ms. Dobbs?
Here.
Mr. Fierdamundo?
Here.
Mr. Garrett?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
And Mr. Reardon?
Here.
All right. So the first thing on the agenda is the reorganization and appointments. Do we have anyone to nominate a chair for this year?
I'd like to nominate Angela Capuzzi for chair.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? No? All right. Since there's no discussion, do we want to just
I'd like to say, I think Angela's been a great chair.
Yeah, he is.
And, has been invaluable in educating me in my first year on the Haverford Township Planning Commission. I strongly support next year. Urge everyone to vote in his favor.
I'm not a board member, but I concur. Do I want to just do, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Mr. Capuzzi, would you like to take the meeting from here?
Sure.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for your vote of confidence. Before we get into the other nominations, a couple things I want to mention. First, welcome back to Rob Furmundo and to Chuck Reardon. Both of those gentlemen were reappointed to the Planning Commission. Or should I say that your parole requests were not
It's good to be back. Thank you.
welcome again. Secondly, I'd like to welcome our newest member, Julia Phillips. Julia is a graduate of Penn State University. She graduated with a degree in architecture. She's a registered architect in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and she has 15 plus years of experience as a project architect. Julia, would like to say anything?
I think that pretty much covered it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Welcome.
Welcome to the board.
Welcome.
And finally, Jesse Poynton was appointed to the zoning hearing board. So Jesse is no longer with us, but I would like to congratulate him for his appointment to the zoning board and to thank him for his 3 years of service to the planning commission.
Actually, he had 2 years with us.
2 years?
Yes, because I'm filling out his last 1 year of his time.
Okay.
Okay? Because it was Rob and I who were up, and then what happened was when he went on to zoning, then we needed to fill somebody in, and I took that 1 year slot.
Okay. Great. Very good. Okay, so we'll move on to nominations for the position of vice chairman of the planning commission. I would like to nominate Chuck Reardon for that position.
I'll second that.
We have one nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close that nominations for vice chairman. All in favor of Chuck Reardon being appointed vice chairman signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Chuck, you're not opposed, right?
No, I hope not.
Okay. Next position is secretary of the planning commission, and I would like to nominate Maggie Dobbs for that position.
I'll second that.
We have a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close nominations for secretary. All in favor of Maggie Dobbs being appointed secretary of the planning commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, Maggie.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Next, we have to appoint a scribe for the coming year. Margie Buchanan has been doing a very good job for us, I think, so I would move that we reappoint Margie as our scribe for 2021.
Sounds great.
I do a second on that if you need it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Hearing none. Item is closed. All in favor of appointing Margie Buchanan as scribe for 2021 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, Margie. And since Jesse is no longer on the planning commission, there's a vacancy on the historic commission, which is typically filled by a planning commission member. I would like to nominate Jack Garrett to represent the planning commission as a member of the historic commission.
I have a second on that.
We have a motion and second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of appointing Jack Garrett as a planning commission representative on the historic commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? Okay. Congratulations, Jack.
Thank you.
Do you know when they meet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, the
Kelly?
next meeting is actually on Tuesday.
Okay, that's great.
Tonight via Zoom, so I will send your stuff off to the historical commission. If you can't make that one, short notice, I get it. But generally, it's the third Monday of every month at 7 o'clock.
I understand that.
Because of Martin, because of MLK, that's why.
Exactly.
They only meet once a month, Jack.
Right. Before we get to the next item, speaking of dates, it actually was brought to my attention that my February dates are accidentally the zoning hearing board's dates. So we are actually looking at February 11th and 25th. I meant to send a revision.
Does the historic commission have anything going on right now?
They always have stuff going on.
Anything
They-
hot?
They are going to be taking a look at the two walls that, over by the Ardmore Avenue Bridge, that went into, going to, I want to say Gulfview Road?
Yeah, it's a
Golf
golf
View?
manor. It's the Ardmore Golf Manor, and
Right.
those two areas were considered to be historic, and what has happened is that they changed the elevation so dramatically because of putting in a bigger culvert for Cobb's Creek, that it affected the height of those two sort of gateways into the Golf Manor. And I don't know, imagine they're going to have, and that they were part of the historic landmarks in the township, and they were destroyed during the process.
The walls, I don't think are actually on the survey. But the historical commission is going to, Marion Golf is going to be included, is going to make a presentation. But the walls are on the other side, in the right of way.
Okay.
Right.
I thought they were part of it.
No, but they will be reviewing it because they do believe that they're significant.
Okay, the next item is to set our calendar for 2021. It looks like it's going to be consistent with our previous years. We're going to be meeting the second and fourth Thursdays of each month. That's January through June. In July, we'll only meet on the 22nd, which is the fourth Thursday. August, we'll meet on the 12th, which is the second Thursday. In September and October, we're back to 2 meetings a month. There's no meetings in November because both the second and fourth Thursdays are holidays. And in December, we'll just meet on the 9th because of the Christmas holiday. So I'll make a motion that we approve the calendar for 2021 as I just read it.
Should we make an amendment to say with the corrections for the February dates?
Yeah, the 11th and 25th, the second and fourth Thursdays.
Second then.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm sorry, I have a question about that. Should we be allowing for at least one meeting in November somehow? If there's something on the calendar, could we make an adjustment as we get closer or something like that?
Sometimes we do schedule a special meeting, and I would certainly be willing to do that, but let's wait and see if there's anything that we need to meet for. If there is something critical, then we can schedule a meeting.
Yeah, I would not like to see somebody have to wait for 2 months because they, missed the last meeting in October and can't get in until December and whatever happens then.
Yeah,
Usually we have one well, at least one in November, but it just works out that it's Veterans Day. It's just really a weird one anyway. And the fourth Thursday is always Halloween. I mean, not Halloween, Thanksgiving. Yeah, so but we normally have one.
Depending on, where we are in November, if we're holding in-person meetings, which, hey, I hope that we are by then,
Me too.
that other boards do, meet in that room. So we don't want to, take up other people's, space that are designated for that day. In the event that we do need to hold a meeting because something is time sensitive or what have you, we can work around it. We'll figure it out.
Jack, when a land development or subdivision plan is submitted, the township has a 90-day clock in which to take action on that plan. That clock doesn't start until the first scheduled planning commission meeting. So usually there's enough time, that 90 days gives us enough time, even if we're to miss a month, to still act on the plan in time for the commissioners to vote on it. And even if we run a little tight, generally the applicant will give us a time extension rather than to say us, not vote for it or something like that.
I'm just thinking about some of those applicants from last year that met with us 4 times.
Yeah,
Well,
they gave us a time extension.
They did. And actually on, along the same point that I don't think I've mentioned to any of the planning commission members, I added a new line in the fee schedule that any time an application has to come back for revisions, they need to add another amount of money to the escrow. So I think, kind of forcing them, to add to the escrow every time they have a revision might cut down on getting some of these less complete plans that we see from the developer rushing their engineer to get it before us when it needs, so many of the items that are, that we always say, you need X, Y, and Z. So hopefully they'll come before us with more complete plans if we're requiring them to hold more money.
But part of the problem also comes about because the engineers feel like they want to give the township engineer something to put into his review letter that says you need to do this, and this to comply. And they do that. And it's a matter of course, certain engineers, we have told them for the past 10 to 15 years that I've been on the planning commission, please bring us out the information that is specific to each and every property and always is necessary. Still don't get it. So part of the problem is it's really not the planning commission so much as it is the incomplete plans coming forward, and then we have to back them up. And you'll see this happen. Those of you who are newer, you'll watch it occur. It's too bad. Chuck Faulkner he complains about it on a regular basis.
Chuck Faulkner is our township engineer.
Sorry, I should have pointed that out.
Okay, next is a review of minutes. We have minutes from October 22nd. We have minutes from November 12th. Let's take those individually. Someone like to make a motion regarding approval of the October 22nd meeting minutes?
I move that we approve the November 22nd minutes.
October 22nd.
October 22nd. I reviewed them, and I didn't see anything that was out of sync. I so move.
Second, anyone?
I'll second that.
I'll second. Kelly, take roll call on that.
Kelly, you're muted.
Roll
Thanks.
call.
Thank you. Mr. Capuzzi,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon,
Yes.
Ms. Dobbs,
Yes.
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Mr. Fioramondo,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
and Ms. Phillips.
Or I
Oh,
wasn't
I'm sorry, you
here,
can't.
So I'm not sure if I should vote.
No. Have it.
Okay. Second, we have the meeting minutes from November 12th. I'll make a motion that we approve those minutes as written.
And I'll second that.
Roll call, Cal?
Sure. Mr. Capuzzi,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon,
Yes.
Ms. Dobbs,
Yes.
Mr. Fioramondo.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed Mr. Shannon,
Okay, yes.
Mr. Garrett.
Yes.
I got everybody right. Sorry, I'm going out of order now. Yes? Okay.
Okay. What do we have? Do we have anything coming up next time, Kel?
Not anything that I have physically in my hands. I was asked or alerted about a month ago that the storage facility did want to return for the January meeting. I had assumed that it was going to be this meeting, but I have not heard from them since. I have not received revised plans. But they did express interest in returning with the revisions from with the comments that were made at the last time that they were before the board.
That still hasn't gone to the zoning board, right?
It has not.
Okay. Anybody will have any comments or anything they want to bring up?
Yeah, I actually wanted to see if we could get an update on where we are with our comprehensive plan update.
Sure. So the last thing that we were preparing to do was a community interactive workshop. Very hands-on, maps, talking to different stations. But weeks before that, everything shut down. We started, stay-in-place orders. So we've really kind of put a halt on things until we're able to do something along those lines. We did, prior to that happening, do an internet-based survey. I personally feel that, yes, we could, hold a workshop via Zoom or in some other, internet-based manner, but I feel like we are, excluding people by doing only, internet, computer-based ways to weigh in and allow public input. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair to people who may want to be included but don't have the capacity in one way or another. So, if hopefully this doesn't continue much longer, we can pick that back up. In the event that it does, we may have to go that route, but I think they're an important piece of the community that shouldn't be excluded for those reasons.
Can I ask a question? And Maggie, actually, your comment is what brings it to light. I have been thinking that one of the major things that is going to be affecting us as a result of COVID-19 and of the adaptive reuse of certain kinds of buildings is that we are going to find ourselves with some real estate that is basically going to possibly be empty in the future. And I see the need for us to look at adaptive reuse of certain kinds of commercial establishments to make certain that we find a way to keep our tax base at a level that's going to be effective for the future. And I think that's going to be an issue that we as the Planning Commission in figuring out how to do things. We run into that problem already with a number of churches that have closed down, with schools that have been sold, with other things that have occurred. We're going to have that as a problem. And the other thing that's happening now is, as we learned this last year, so I just want you to put this just in the back of your, just in your thinking caps here, is that we just had to enlarge the high school. We're going to have the same problems coming down and trickling down throughout the school areas, and that's going to mean that we're going to have to look at those at our schools, as they're going to have to start adding space, because traditionally 45% of the students who went to school in Haverford Township went to parochial or private schools, and that number, when it gets up to 40,000 plus to go to private school nowadays, has been changing dramatically. Also, the numbers of young people who are having larger families are growing, plus the fact that because our tax base is so high, not a complaint, but a reality check, people, when they retire, are moving out of the township, which means younger people are buying those houses, and that's adding more people into the school system. It's not our worry, except that we will be seeing those kinds of situations coming forward, and how, and as we have sold off different properties for schools, where are we going to find the space, and what are we going to do? I think it's going to be just things that we need to keep in the back of our minds so that we work forward with it. But Maggie, is there something going on in Montgomery County where you're seeing a push? If we can put ourselves in the right spot at the right time, instead of being at the tail end of this, I'd like to be part of the change earlier on. Have you been seeing that?
Yeah, so just briefly, I can speak to some of those issues. So at the county level, we partner with school districts to do school enrollment projections. So I'm not sure if that has been done for our school district, but that does help to identify areas of growth and decline in certain age categories, which then impacts the school attendance that we expect to see. And that's based on land patterns, land development patterns, new residential, and then looking at demographic trends as well. So Chuck, to your point of taking a look at housing turnover, taking a look at the number of residents that we have in different age categories gives us a sense of kind of what the school age children population is going to be. So that's one of the things that we could take a look at. Generally, demographic projections through the comprehensive plan will be important to identify those growth categories in age groups, which will then, of course, help us identify kind of what the needs of the community are. So certainly the aging population over 65 has a different kind of set of needs than younger families, have different demands on community services and things like that. To the point of institutional reuse, we do actually have a guidebook. So the county issued a guidebook a couple years ago. It's called Reinventing or Reimagining Institutional Properties. Kelly, if that's of interest to you, I can point you in the direction. It's just on the Montgomery County Planning Commission's page online. And so my colleague wrote that and takes a look at best practices for just turning over institutional properties. So taking a look at old churches, taking a look at old schools, and seeing how they've been repurposed for various uses. So residential tends to be the primary kind of reuse. Narberth actually has a couple of really cool examples of how they converted churches into condominiums. That's the nearby example that I can point to. We also see some cool adaptive reuse projects in Ambler Borough. They actually converted, I think, to like a workspace kind of a thing, like a flex workspace, one of their old kind of warehouse style buildings. So it's not just schools or churches or other institutional uses, but it's just existing kind of pre-existing buildings and how we can do that, which is a really great thing for the community because a lot of these structures are very iconic in their neighborhood and their enclaves, and they're very recognizable as community landmarks. So it's always important to save those to the best of our ability, but be able to repurpose them for some alternate use that will add value to the community. So yeah, absolutely. We have some great examples in Montgomery County that we can point to, and some resources that I can share with you all. But those are kind of the main things that I think speaks to, Chuck, your question. So
Thank you. The township, the old township building, I was talking with some people at one of the multi-group hospital operations, and they don't do any of their IT work, okay, on site. They do go into the actual areas when they upgrade and do things so that you'll go to this hospital or that hospital, but many of the hospitals now, there are 8, 10, 12 hospitals, and be able to pop an IT operation, which is into a building like that, if we could find a way to create that kind of an interest, and people would be able to then save city wage tax, they wouldn't have to be in the city. My son has worked remote for University of Pennsylvania in the IT world since the middle of March, and quite frankly, his entire group's productivity is going up 7%. So from being on site, so it's interesting to see how things are changing, and they're talking about extending that. Right now, it's all the way out to the end of the summer. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe in the future, CHOP uses two of the floors of the Wanamaker building for all of their IT work. And it's just fascinating to see how we might be able to find a use for a couple of these non-used parts of the township to maybe bring some additional real income into the township. So just a thought, and I know it's the very beginning, but I don't want everything to end up out in western Chester County, when I think we can have some of that stuff here in Delaware County and help us all out.
Just as a reminder, Chuck, the planning commission in the zoning code, there is a provision about adaptive reuse of institutional buildings that are no longer used institutionally, and that it does come before the planning commission for evaluation of what the future zoning district should be. Not necessarily the use specifically, but zoning district, where it should be incorporated. So that does include the township building, and a lot of other those institutional uses that we've seen kind of
Super.
Vacate. So that's there, and that always has been. So it would be something that is already set that comes to the planning commission for recommendation.
Kelly, has there ever been a assessment of the buildings that are available?
Like a vacant building assessment?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. Generally, people, will call me saying, "Hey, I have this use. Where can I go?" But unless realtors share those things with me, we're pretty in the dark about that. I'm pretty much a one-woman planning team at the township building, so there's only so much I can do. But yes, I do wish that resource was available so that I could, when somebody does apply for something that I do have to turn down as the zoning officer, that I could kind of push them in a direction of saying like, hey, maybe look at this building or this building where it is more appropriate, parking, zoning, etc.
St. Faith's Church is no longer active as a church. They sold that property to a private individual. St. Faith's had a daycare facility associated with it. The daycare is still there. But I don't know what the church building itself is being used for, if it's being used at all. And Chuck, if you remember, St. Denis had that gymnasium or meeting room over on their campus, and they demolished that, and we put in 4 or 5 homes over there.
Right.
Right. The Stratford School, remember Stratford School?
Yep, that's now condos. Yeah, it's condos.
But the initial assessment begins with the planning commission, doesn't it, Kelly, as far as the rezoning or the reuse?
Yes.
And when the Stratford School was done and turned into condos, it was the first of those kinds of adaptive reuses of schools that we had addressed. And for those of you who weren't there, it was a real learning curve, and I'd love to be able to keep moving forward so that we can because we're going to run into these kinds of problems in the next 2 to 3 years, people, and I just feel like I would love to be on the good side of this. I'd like to be ahead of the curve rather than behind it. That's all. I think if we're not going to, and one of the things that happened was 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 15 years ago, when I started on the planning commission, we had 3 to 4 projects every single time we saw somebody. Today, we built out so much of the township that we're seeing less and less and less subdivisions coming in where people buy property, 4 or 5 properties that were built out as if there are 2, but really are 4 or something, and they come in and they tear down houses and start over again, and they have the right to do that. That kind of stuff is not it's not happening as much as it used to, and so we will have some time that we could address some of these really important issues for us as a township, and love to have a good effect on the future for the township, especially considering how expensive it is to live in Delaware County. So
one of the things that I've seen that's been really helpful, if there's an interest in at least having a catalog. So Kelly, I don't know if this exists already, but maybe either as part of the comp plan process or a recommendation of the comp plan to just catalog all of the existing kind of institutional buildings in the township, and kind of note if they're under their current use or if they've been modified for something else. Only because I've seen some support in some zoning codes that would allow for treatment of these institutional properties in a slightly different way. I mean, we can always take a look at what the concern might be if a reuse is imminent, but that just might be helpful to have a catalog of those buildings and kind of understand where they are, what's around them, and make a game plan in that future land use to say, if and when these structures ever cease operations under their original usage, here's how we would imagine they could serve as community assets moving forward. So whether that's a mixed use, office or workspace, or IT office, or residential or senior housing or affordable housing, there's options, I think, for us to outline, at least in the comp plan, use this opportunity to lay out that vision for what we would want to see those buildings used for if they're no longer used for their original purpose. Obviously, we're not like kicking churches out of their spaces, but in the event that happens, and only because that is a growing trend in our region and across the country, church attendance is down, and a lot of churches have been closing, and like older and defunct kind of hospitals and schools and all sorts of things kind of get shifted over the years. So we're seeing a lot of these beautiful old kind of landmark buildings sit vacant, and if we don't do anything to save them, they end up getting torn down. So I think that could be a really helpful avenue for this particular kind of building and usage in our future land use plan for the comprehensive plan.
Sure. I don't have a list that exists at the moment, but interestingly, something that is an annoyance in my daily life would be probably quite helpful when in our very old AS400 system, prior to our current software, all of the zoning districts were put in, but they were never changed over the years. So unless somebody actually went in and did it manually, that happens pretty rarely. So I actually probably am able to create a list of the properties that have been zoned institutional for quite some time, and we can at least start from there.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Let me know if there's something that I can do to help.
Sure.
go through that list or field verify or anything like that.
Yeah, all right.
Because if we
I
can't,
would expect the, building's not in use at all. I would expect the water company or electric have records. Fire department.
Right, well, so it's connected to our system, the rest of our system, which is up to date, but, over the years, when certain zoning districts have been changed, specifically institutional, you know, they may not have been updated manually in the system. So that particular item in the data entry, it was often never changed. So creating a list, just generating from the INS zoning district and creating a report that way, and I'll be able to go in and see current documents and, you know, updated information. But that particular holdover from an old system would likely still be in there, so I could just generate it and see, you know, what's still there, what's been changed, you know, how it's sort of
Great.
evolved over the years.
Wonderful.
Maggie, I have a question. In some of the experiences that you've had, was there a checklist that would be, that you know of one that's already been established for what the impact an adaptive reuse would have to a specific building?
meaning like just like the guts of the building, kind of what,
No, I'm talking about more of, I guess, the impact to the community of what, for example, if a building is available where it would be renovated into condominiums, how would that impact the community?
yeah, so my experience, no, there isn't a specific checklist. That's why I think maybe kind of outlining what we would like to see these buildings turn into through a future land use vision might be the clearest route, kind of through our legal channels and just articulating what that would look like. I'm sure that there's some kind of real estate something analysis that could be done that would look at, say, the benefit from property value standpoint, maybe of turning something into residential versus turning it into something like a mixed use or an office, retail, commercial enterprise instead. That is definitely outside of my wheelhouse to do that kind of like an economic analysis on different land use types for a property. And that's not something that I have seen or been involved with specifically. I feel like that would be more of the developer's end to say, you know, we've run the numbers and these are kind of the uses that would be the most beneficial. But that typically is most beneficial for the developer and not necessarily for the community.
Sure. And I'm thinking of us as a planning commission.
Yeah,
So
I think our best bet would just be to say, you know, we understand the community, we live in the community, and through the comprehensive planning process and articulating that future land use vision, we could say, you know, these are the needs that we've identified in the community through this public outreach process and through our research with our consultants and writing the plan. You know, and we can articulate, you know, we are missing this type of housing, we're missing senior housing, or we're missing low income housing, or this community could really, like, we feel the community could really benefit from, you know, more daycare centers or some other kind of community benefit, a community rec room or a space for youth to get together and do activities after school, whatever the case is. I think that just articulating that through the future land use vision is going to be the most beneficial for us, rather than in terms of kind of our capacity as a planning commission versus running some kind of a real estate analysis, you know, cost benefit ratio to the properties.
Just to add to that, I have seen software that does actually kind of run a predictive impact study. I don't know the accuracy of those things, and I certainly don't have one available to me. They do exist. I think it'd be interesting, but I think both things are extremely important because that software, however good it may be, doesn't know the community, doesn't live here, and
That's my concern.
exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they exist. They're not available to me.
Okay.
But I think you know, all of that input you know, needs to be looked at by human eyes. And that's why you guys exist.
One thing we can start thinking about is Brookline School. Now that the library has decided that they're going to renovate, not build new, Brookline School is a prime candidate for some type of redevelopment.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know who it's going to be. So it's something that we can start thinking about now, because sooner or later it's going to come before us.
Well, the big kind of hurdle there is that the school district, when they sold that property to the township, did include strict conditions of that transfer. Don't quote me, I believe that it can't be used or developed privately in any way, and it has to be for the good of the community. What exactly the parameters of that are, I'm not entirely certain without looking at them. But essentially, some sort of community space, whether that just be, the demo of the building and it just uses an entire park, a reuse of the building as a community space in some way, but something along those lines was the intent of that sale.
Right. Well, we can also revisit that and see whether or not we have the opportunity to look at that in new lights, depending on what's going on in the world now that we weren't anticipating 2, 3, 4 years ago, because a lot of things have changed.
Right, but we would need to have the school district sign the
Yeah.
agreement, likely agreeing to changing that condition.
I agree. We're gonna have a couple of hurdles there that are major.
Yeah, I'd be curious if that condition was in do you believe it was in perpetuity, or was it a timeline attached to it?
No, that was forever and ever.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you all very much for a good discussion this evening. I really appreciate, and thank you, Maggie, for all the input that you are able to share. I appreciate that. I really, really do.
You're welcome. I have to say though, this is I'm actually going to be switching to a new job soon, so I won't have the resources of the County Planning Commission at my fingertips quite as much anymore. So I'll be starting my new position 1st of February.
So you need to grab all this stuff now.
Yeah.
You going to the dark side, Meg?
I'm actually going to be taking a job. I'm going to turn into a Kelly. I'm taking a position as the Director of Planning and Zoning / Assistant Township Manager at Westtown Township in Chester County.
I was township engineer there for like 15 years.
Wait, were you really?
Yeah.
I'll have to pick your brain then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know where all the skeletons are.
Perfect. I need to uncover all of them then.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank
Can I
you.
just say, I actually almost applied for that job.
Did you really? I would have had stiff competition.
Yeah. Well, the drive, I was like, oh, like meetings this late and that drive now.
I know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Who's the manager there? Rob?
No, it's a new manager. His name is John Altschul.
Okay.
He's from East Goshen. I think he was
East
assistant
Goshen.
township
Okay.
manager in East Goshen or West Goshen, one of the Goshens.
Good luck with that. That was a great township. I really enjoyed working there, and I kind of hated leaving when I did, but
Yeah. Well,
there
thank
were
you.
wonderful people there.
Yes,
There were,
I
yeah.
look forward to it. It's a beautiful township. So I'm looking forward to hunkering down with one municipality instead of trying to juggle 4 or 5 of them at a time.
And it's a good size too.
Yeah, I think so. It's nice because it's mostly built out. There's still a lot of good projects going on, so it's going to be more of implementation of work, which is something that I don't get to do in my current professional position. As a consultant, I'm mostly advisory, so I'm looking forward to kind of actually being able to implement things. So Kelly, I will be picking your brain as well.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of new things to me happening with the role of zoning officer. Again.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame. Actually, I kind of started with the zoning stuff and then kind of led into planning. So, but getting people into a zoning mindset is it's a whole different learning capacity. Yeah, definitely. But you'll do fine. I'm absolutely sure of it. Well, thank you. Let you know how it
Okay.
goes.
Do I have anything else? If not, we can call it a night.
I'll make a move that we adjourn.
Okay. Second that motion, and all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year, and maybe we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Maybe not. We'll see.
Okay,
Take care, guys.
All right. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you all.
take care, everyone. Good to see you.
Well, it's good seeing you all.